We were being openly attacked by the members of the ruling elite, and nobody did a thing about it. The president was quiet, so we saw that, well, the president is also on board with this. Well, whoa. And we thought the president was supposed to be, the guarantee of independence and freedom of speech included, but no, he wasn't. So it was scary, but we had to stand up.
Persecution, corruption, and even murder. In this summer series, we look at some jaw-dropping investigations done by journalists across Europe. What do their stories reveal about the state of European democracy? And what impact did they have on society and on the journalists themselves? This is a podcast by the investigative newsroom Follow the Money. I'm your host, Emma de Chazinier, and I'm joined by Lise Witteman, founder of Follow the Money's Brussels desk and my co-host for the summer. It all started with a seemingly small story in Lithuania. Journalist Šarūnas Černiauskas noticed something unusual in the Prime Minister's business dealings. What he did not know at the time was that a way larger investigation would follow, and eventually the Prime Minister had to resign. Šarūnas joins us today to explain what it was like to discover a scandal that brought down the country's most powerful politician and how Lithuania then came dangerously close to sliding towards authoritarian rule. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Šarūnas, and welcome in our studio.
Hi.
Could you just start by telling a little bit about yourself and the newsroom that you work for?
Now I must say I'm probably already a veteran investigative reporter when it comes to Lithuania. At least on Lithuanian scale, I am a veteran. And I run a small NGO. It's called Siena, and we've been in the field since 2019. With the vision of being the first media outlet that's entirely devoted to investigative reporting. And that's the only thing we do.
And today we're going to be talking about a specific set of reporting that you did, which ultimately helped bring down Prime Minister Paluckas in Lithuania. But before you started reporting on him, you actually already knew this man for quite a long time, way before he became Prime Minister. How did you first get to know him?
I just stumbled upon him when I was working in a regional newspaper covering the capital back in 2007, I think. And he was really impressive. He knew everything. He was the most convenient person to talk to. A politician who's really competent, who knows a lot, who actually understands the work he's doing. When he first won the elections of the chairman of the Social Democrat Party, he seemed to be the guy who's actually representing the true left politics. That was the vision he spoke about, that was the thing he advocated, and personally I thought it had a lot of appeal because, we didn't have any real left politics for like 2 decades or so. But it didn't really appeal to the electorate of the Social Democrats, and that's why he had to step down.
But we see him again as Prime Minister in December 2024. And this genuine left-wing politician also ended up forming a coalition with far-right populist parties, right?
Yes, exactly. One far-right populist party. They're nasty, they're populist, but the Prime Minister didn't give a damn.
For you, as a journalist that had actually been reporting on this guy for all these years, what was it like for you to see him act like this all of a sudden?
I also became increasingly disappointed, but I had no intention to investigate the Prime Minister or anybody from his surroundings.
What changed? What made you go after him?
Would you believe it if I said it was a fish? Because it was a fish. I was working on another sanction evasion story, I think, and all of a sudden there's this big piece of news across all media, which is basically the Prime Minister going fishing in a private estate owned by a rather shady businessman. And the shady businessman, he's called Tautvydas Barštys. He's also, experiencing a rather rare form of middle-age crisis because he imagines himself to be an Instagram influencer. So once he has the Prime drop by and go fishing with him, he does an Instagram story. And there's the happy Prime Minister with this big fish he caught. he's really happy, and he didn't smile often, so that's a rare instance of, a display of emotion. And when everybody was asking, who paid for the prime minister's stay, was it personal money, was it state money, why was he hanging out with this guy, I knew I had no chance of, diving into the story and producing something as fast as the news media. But I just decided I should double-check what's new with the prime minister's businesses. It was weird, and, these guys, a shady businessman and a famously corrupt mayor, well, it's not the exact company you would imagine the prime minister in. Because, well, what I do is embedded in your name. My job is to follow the money. And so I did.
Because that's what you do.
Yeah.
You check companies, you see what is changing.
And when I kept digging, it became increasingly odd because, firstly, it received a loan from an EU-funded program for startups. But he also had another company operating for like 14 years, also producing batteries, and definitely not qualifying for the loan from the startup program. So that's weird. Why do you need two companies operating in the same field and, well, almost in the same building when you're basically doing the same thing? It doesn't really make sense. And it was supposed to be a one-shot, a single story that might force the prime minister to, hand the 200,000 back and get another loan from a regular bank at a slightly bigger interest rate. That was how we imagined it when we ran the first story.
Yeah, so wrongdoing by the prime minister, but nothing crazy, nothing major.
Yeah, well, a conflict of interest at best, yeah.
And then, what happens? How did the prime minister react to your findings as well?
Initially, we had an interview, and it was good. He was, the good old Paluckas, the guy who knows everything and has all the answers. I was happy with that. But then we run the story. He goes quiet, and, I'm waiting for the reaction and not planning anything. I was just going to the gym. And then my colleague texts me and says, well, look, he's throwing a press conference. Okay, there goes my gym. So I went to the press conference, and then he became acting really strange. He went on to explain how his companies are unrelated, the two companies he owns, how companies producing batteries aren't producing the same batteries, which also sounds quite odd, and he became quite aggressive. He was really tense. You could see the muscles on his neck getting a lot of strain a lot of the time, and he wouldn't bear my questions.
What was going through your mind when you saw this?
WTF? That's what was going on in my head. Like, why is he acting like that?
And this was odd because normally it would be just, okay, I was wrong here, or just deny it and then
back to business.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it was a mistake that would be easy to admit, but he didn't. And he started talking nonsense like, the two companies are unrelated. Well, they obviously are, but he kept repeating they're not.
And then you started diving deeper into it. And what was sort of the pattern that then emerged?
Well, first of all, we saw a prime minister with assets of unexplained origin. We saw him buying an apartment he couldn't afford. He was poor on paper. He couldn't afford the things he had. So what the hell? So we started diving deeper, and the company connected to the businessman I mentioned, it was just siphoning money to the prime minister's business in loans that were never repaid.
So you had all these findings and you published them. What was the reaction to your publications?
Then things became crazy. Prime Minister became really aggressive. Really, really aggressive, and he was summoned to the parliament to answer questions sent to him in written by the opposition, and instead of answering those questions, he spent most of that time launching all kinds of insults at the opposition and at us.
I see you also have a T-shirt naming all kinds of sayings. What is that exactly? Can you describe it?
These are all the insults we got from the Prime Minister, the ones with the strike-through font, and this is the hashtag we used for the story. I'm going to translate it rather bluntly. Let's give it meaning. Because the trademark phrase the Prime Minister had before these stories was, well, let's not give this too much meaning. Whenever, he has to talk about the far-right/populist in government along with him, well, let's not give this too much meaning. So whenever there's a scandal going on, whenever the government is in a crisis, he's trying to downplay it with this light catchphrase that actually annoyed the Lithuanian public a lot. So we decided to turn it around. And our, slogan was, let's give this meaning, because this is bloody meaningful.
But at this point, how is the public reacting to it? Like, was his position still sustainable at this point?
The public became increasingly involved in the story. We saw, it was the main topic of discussion across the country. Wherever you went, it was talked about. Where did he get that money? Why was he doing this or that? People got increasingly infuriated, and in July last year, pretty much a year ago, we had the first protest against Paluckas and also against the president, because the president also became involved and he decided to shield the prime minister, basically, and, take the fall for him.
Did you also participate in the protest yourself?
I wasn't intending to, but I was asked to go on stage and, I had to. It was crazy, a crowd of 2,000 people shouting thank you. I wasn't expecting that at all. We had people from the culture sector. We had intellectuals asking for transparency and for accountability.
Because at this point, was it also, like initially your goal was never to force the prime minister to step down, but did that change? Like at this point, was that sort of your mission?
No. My mission was get those answers for the Lithuanian public. Just answer the bloody questions. That's all I wanted. But he didn't.
So essentially you thought, if you refuse to answer my questions, I'll just dig deeper and find the answers to those questions myself.
Yeah. I was trying to do that along with Andrius from Laisvės TV. We actually ruined our summer. Instead of going on vacation, we would just work on the stories, on another follow-up and another follow-up and another one. But the other side also did their homework, and now I realize it was a strategy. All of the communication they did, they tried to portray it as a conflict between the prime minister and, two nuts, two crazy journalists. It's just between him and us. Everybody else shouldn't care about it. But then things changed. At first, the Business Daily launched their own investigation. And they proved where the money was coming from, the loans that were never repaid. Then another office did their own investigation into a piece of land that the prime actually, tried to steal from the state. Ta-da! Then a radio station starts asking the questions that he wouldn't answer to us. And everybody's on board.
Other media outlets.
Yes, and that felt amazing. Because all of a sudden we're not alone, and there's a lot of friends and colleagues who also care about the story and who want those answers.
All of a sudden you were not just two crazy journalists in their rabbit hole, but you actually had the support of pretty much the entire media landscape in the country. Yeah,
and it was amazing. I wanted to hug each and every person.
To high five everybody.
Yeah. And that's when I thought maybe something is going to change, but it didn't. Instead, the prime minister would take, quote unquote, one-day vacation he planned a long time ago. That was the official version. He would fail to answer questions again and again. He would lash out at other journalists instead of me, which was nice for a change. And I honestly felt that it's all in vain, that nothing's gonna change.
So at this point, you still thought you were ruining your summer for no reason?
At this point, when even after that, and after multiple stories by us and by other teams of journalists, I was actually, I'd given up. I just decided to go on a proper vacation. I took my family to Berlin, and I decided not to give a damn.
How were your holidays? Did you manage to actually enjoy them?
A couple of enjoyable days, but then my dear friend Andrius ruined it for everybody. Because, he came back from vacation and took over, and all of a sudden he got a real tip about a company we didn't know of. And that was a company owned by the Prime Minister's sister-in-law that received a substantial amount of EU funding, roughly 170,000 euros, to develop an electrical boat charging station like 5 kilometers away from any water. And guess what? Well, a boat charging station might need batteries. And by pure coincidence, that company bought a lot of batteries from the Prime Minister's company. The very first company we touched. The company that got the preferential loan from the state-owned bank. And that was the kaboom. Then, everything comes together now.
Full circle moment.
Yeah, now we understand why he was so nervous after the first story. Because that thing was already happening. And the actual tipping point happened in the morning of, I think it was the 31st of July. I'm still in Berlin. I took an extra day because I really wanted to relax for once. And I wake up with like a dozen of missed calls from my friends and colleagues. And so some of them are texting like, well, that's it, congrats. I'm like, what? What the hell's happening? And I opened the news. I'm like, whoa. The law enforcement is raiding the office of the company that received the EU funds. The law enforcement is also raiding the flat of the Prime Minister's brother and asking for reinforcements because he wouldn't open the door. As far as I know, they had to call firefighters. And then it goes kaboom. On the same day, the president decides to act as the Prime Minister's spokesperson and announce the resignation.
Of
the Prime Minister. Because, well, the Prime Minister himself wouldn't have the guts to stand up and say it. And it was a shock. I wasn't expecting it all to go, kaboom within a single day.
So there you were in your bed in Berlin, and you just woken up, and that's when you learned that the Prime Minister was stepping down. What did that moment mean for you?
Well, it was a relief. It was a relief, but still the principal idea and the principal thought in my head was, what the hell is happening in my country? Because we had nearly 3 months of total denial and total impunity being imposed upon the entire country. And then, well, apparently one raid by the law enforcement, that's what does the trick.
And how did the rest of this political crisis unfold? What happened in the days after?
Well, one of my colleagues, my partner in crime in Siena, were co-owners of the media outlets. She was actually trying to be, the evil prophet when the crisis evolved and when we became entrenched with the Prime Minister. She said, well, guys, and what if he steps down and things go even worse? Then everybody's going to blame you.
Was that a fear that you had as well?
Well, I realize that's a risk, but, is it my responsibility if a government steps down and a worse government comes in? It's not mine. It's the politicians who decide. Because when Paluckas stepped down and the entire cabinet with him, they had the chance to show that, this was a mistake. We can do better. But instead they decided, we can do much worse. And that's when it became really, really scary, actually. Because, first of all, we had a far more radical government in place, and it becomes extremely aggressive. They started an attempt of a hostile takeover of the national TV. That's
the government.
Yes. It all began as a ridiculous law they tried to push through, and it came from the populist/far-right party. But then it became part of the actual agenda. It passed the first vote in the parliament, and then people realized, whoa, things got serious. If you take over the national TV, everybody else is in line. I can be next, another commercial TV can be next, a news portal can be next. If the national broadcaster is under political control, everybody can be next. We've seen it in Hungary, we've seen it in Poland, we're seeing it in Slovakia now, so it's a matter of time. So the journalist community started organizing protests with the help from the culture community, which was amazing, because those guys also realized, well, we won the battle, but not the war.
And just to be clear, was this the quickest decline in like democratic rule of law values that you've seen during your career?
Definitely. The country was, well, our democracy was in the biggest danger, at least since early 2000s, when we had the president impeached. And I never expected, Lithuanians to take to the streets so massively. The biggest protest we had was like 45,000 people. It started with 2,000, and then we have 45,000 in 6 months.
For a 3 million people country.
Exactly. It was a feeling of, now or never. We have to stand up now, because if we don't defend the national TV, well, all hell is going to break loose. Every single journalist who was actively involved in the protest was slandered one way or another, including myself. We were being openly attacked by the members of the ruling elite, and nobody did a thing about it. The president was quiet, so we saw that, well, the president is also on board with this. Well, whoa. And we thought the president was supposed to be, the guarantee of independence and freedom of speech included, but no, he wasn't. So it was scary, but we had to stand up.
And was your political resistance in the end, did it pay off? Was it successful?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was, because the European Parliament intervened. We had the Venice Commission intervene, which was a very important step as well. And it took too long. They no longer had the amount of votes they needed to change the management. And in the end of the day, the law that was passed, well, it's still a bad law, but it's no longer a threat to democracy. Seems like the Social Democrats understood how big of a gamble it was. And we have the municipal elections next year. We have parliamentary elections in 2 years. And they don't want to be remembered as the guys who had all those scandals, including the political takeover of the national TV. So seems like they backpedaled. But still they're angry. So we realized that, they might want revenge sooner or later.
But compared to a year ago, you're feeling more at ease about the state of your country?
A year ago, no. A year ago, it was total chaos, and I wasn't sure where my country's headed at all. I didn't understand how my country is operating at all. So now it's more positive. Then the scary part was December 2025. That was really scary. Now seems like, our democracy defended itself. Seems so.
Do you think there's also any lessons that journalists or just the public in other European countries can learn from this whole story?
I think the main lesson here is the meaning of unity and solidarity. Because the prime minister, well, I guess he wouldn't have resigned if we didn't get the backing from other journalists when it was needed the most. In this case, when it comes to, the protests, we suddenly realized that, we have a damn powerful common enemy, and all of a sudden, investigative newsrooms in Lithuania united to do common stories. And together, we showed power. So I hope that that's also a lesson to learn for other countries, because assaults on democracy, they're gonna happen. They are happening now, and solidarity is the only antidote.
So this was the end, of course, of the prime minister. But for you, there was a little nice ending as well for your newsroom, Siena.
Well, there were several nice endings, I guess. I never said that in public, so I'm going to make an exception. In May 2025, the balance of our bank account was 5,000 euros.
Of your newsroom?
Yes. Yes, and I was really thinking, oh God, what we're going to do. We had a total of 2 employees at the time, so it wasn't too scary, but still. When we started investigating the prime minister, all of a sudden, a lot of people started donating, which was amazing. And that helped us survive the summer, which was great. we received an influx of public support. People would just, donate 5 or 10 euros. Just, guys, keep up the good work, which was amazing. And we just learned that a few weeks ago, they rose by 90,000 euros. And the craziest thing about it is that a bunch of Lithuanian businessmen, actually led by a Dutchman, they decided to set up a crazy prize for investigative journalism. And by crazy, I mean 200,000 euros.
And this is from Vinted, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Vinted CEO and some other businessmen has set this up. And it was the first time that this prize was set up.
Yes, we never had a financial prize for investigative reporting in Lithuania. And then these guys come together and they're like, well, let's make it 200,000 euros. And that was nuts.
That's huge. That's unheard of, I think, in the world of investigative journalism, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a huge relief because for a change, I'm running a stable newsroom. And we all know how rare that is.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. What are you going to do with the money?
We split the money 50-50 with Andrus, who did the other 50% of the job.
Yeah.
So we both are going to spend the money differently. In his case, I think his wife donated some of the money to charities who are taking care of animal rights. In my case, I donated money to charities who are working on election transparency. Also, a substantial part of the prize goes into the newsrooms directly.
And are you finally going to get that vacation?
Actually, we already did sort of, but I also promised the family to take them to Japan for scouting, so that's coming up next.
It sounds like it's more than deserved after all this work. All right. Well, thank you so much for this very interesting conversation.
And to be so transparent about your own financials.
And that's where we'll leave it for today's episode. Lisa and I will be back soon for another one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.